All right, thanks for joining us. This is our first episode of Culture Alchemy on video.
Yeah,
Yeah, so we're really excited, and we're going to sink our teeth into sinners for this episode.
we are indeed. We are indeed.
And I know, Antoinette, you've seen it twice now,
I have.
and you
Yeah,
recently saw it how it should be seen on the IMAX,
I did.
which I didn't get to, but I'm definitely jealous of you.
Honestly, it was exactly how the director wanted us to see it.
Yeah,
It did make a difference in my mind.
okay.
The
So
second
you have to
time
see it on the
around, I picked
IMAX.
up so much more.
Okay.
It was amazing. But we're gonna get into all of our thoughts on this one today.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
I'm
So
excited about it.
so you've seen it once. For context, you've seen it once.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I've only seen it once. Yeah, I loved it. Yeah, I love horror movies, and going into it, I thought it was going to be a straight up horror movie, which I think a lot of people did.
Hmm.
From the first, since the first teaser came online, I was excited about the movie, but I did think it was going to be a horror movie, and it's way more than that. There's many layers to the movie, which we're going to unpack. There's a lot to unpack and a lot of symbolism. Um, it's definitely, yeah, it's vampires are in it, but I think it's after watching it, it's more of a like a historical drama, I would say, than a straight up horror movie.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think that's one of the things I thought was really cool about it
Yeah,
is that it was really defying a genre. It was a new genre of film. It was like a vampiric period piece.
yeah,
Like it was kind of something I haven't seen before. I mean, I know a lot of people are comparing it to Jordan Peele and how they
yeah.
felt when they saw Get Out. And that is kind of yeah, this is kind of how I felt coming out of this one is like I'm seeing something I've never seen before. And I had a feeling that it was for me so far, this is my favorite movie of the year. Like without question,
Yeah.
still early, but I just feel like it's something, yeah, something like really, really, really unique.
It's a 10 out of 10.
Yeah,
It's a masterpiece and it's essential viewing. And you're
I
right.
agree.
It is the best film of the year. I hope that Michael B. Jordan gets nominated for an Oscar, and
Mm,
I think Ryan Coogler should be nominated for Best Director. And yeah, I hope to see it at the Oscars for sure. Yeah.
yeah, I think we'll see it get nominated for a few things here, but I'm excited to get into this. So where do we want to begin?
Okay. So, do you want to talk about? I guess just as far as the twins and like Michael B. Jordan's performance and what did you make of the story and all the symbolism?
Hmm. Yeah. Okay. So, man, I guess if it's not already clear, love this movie. Uh, I feel like this is an amazing movie where, like we said, it sort of bends genre. I feel as if it also does an amazing job of both giving us a story that is historically sound.
Mhm.
There's a lot of really interesting Easter eggs in the film. So you learn a lot about this period of history.
Mhm.
It's definitely a thinker. There's so much to unpack. I love that about a movie when it leaves me thinking about it and when I am still not sure what I saw. And then I think also too, it's a masterclass in storytelling. So even if you don't pick up on any of the historical,
Yeah.
you know, sort of nuggets in it, it's still a great movie about vampires, but not really about vampires though, which is the beauty of the movie. I feel like Coogler did a good job of actually having people discuss really big themes
Mhm.
and really, I think challenging themes as well. Like this is a movie that dives deep into the race pool, and yet at the same time, like you don't feel like he's shoving in your face. I think people could go and enjoy it without having any awareness of that and think they just saw a really great vampire movie or horror movie. So it does so many things. It's just like a masterful weaving of story and myth and metaphor and like symbolism. It's just a great movie all around. I just really felt it was rich intellectually and also like I had a great emotional experience too.
Yeah, And not only racially too, and historically as well, but also like spiritually. There's a lot of spiritual
Mm.
overtones and themes to the movie. For example, it starts out with Sammy, who is conflicted. You know, his dad is a preacher in the church
Hmm.
and does not approve of him having a love for the guitar, which is like basically blues music
Hmm.
and jazz. And so he's conflicted because it's seen in the church as like you shouldn't idolize. You know, he idolizes his guitar and it means a lot to him. And then that type of music, if it's not traditional gospel,
Hmm.
you know, it's seen as like not like accepted, right? And he also, I think he feels like he doesn't want to be, you know, stuck in the church as like far as a traditional institution. I think that's one of the
Mm.
themes as well. And so he sways from that and he pursues his music. And that, you know, that's one of the themes that plays all throughout the film as well until the end, including the post-credit scene, which we'll get to as well. Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, yeah.
And one of the best scenes I've seen, speaking of the of his love for the music and black music and culture, is that scene when he's playing and
Mm.
it goes through the times of different artists up
Yes.
to the future,
Oh my
which is
God.
that's one of the
Oh my
best
God.
scenes I've
Yeah.
seen on film in a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, it blew me away.
Blew me
Yeah,
away too. The first time I watched it, I'll be honest, I was kind of like, what is happening?
yeah, right.
Like, what
Yeah,
is happening?
yeah,
And then I kind of just like went with it and then realized what was happening.
yeah.
And the second time, because I knew it was coming, I really enjoyed it, and I picked up on how brilliant that scene is. But like going back to what you were saying, like that kind of like ancestral sort of like
Yeah,
hoedown, it was like this like time traveling montage of music and
it was
dance.
so beautifully
It was
done.
so beautifully done.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's the scene that, oh, spoiler alert, if anyone hasn't seen this movie, we
yeah.
are going to spoil it up, right, left, center, up and down. So, yeah, that's a major, major scene that
And if you haven't
everyone
seen it,
talks
like,
about.
where's your priorities also? But there's going to be
True,
a lot of
true,
spoilers. Okay.
true.
Yeah.
We should probably pop a disclaimer
Yeah.
on this at the outset,
We
but
definitely will.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that scene is one that everyone's talking about for really good reason. It's
Hmm.
just a beautiful scene. And again, kind of speaks to how I felt the whole movie felt for me. He's saying so much with so little. Like, I
Hmm.
just feel like there's so much that you can glean from the history of, uh, yeah, just music throughout the ages and the connection that they all have
Hmm.
together and the evolution of music, of dance, of it's music is a really powerful and strong theme, like you said, in the
Yeah.
movie. And I, yeah, I just found that scene to be so beautiful. And I was really curious, like, I feel as if you mentioned a couple things I kind of wanted
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
talk about, but you were saying music is one of the major themes, music in general.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think Ryan is trying to say about music? Or what do you think he's trying to say in this specific film then about music?
Um, I think he was trying to say, I think he was trying to weave, you know, Sammy's love for the guitar and music into like where the birth of where that music came from as well, like blues and jazz came from that
Mm.
period. So I think he was trying to weave that in. Also, connect it spiritually as well. You know, it's seen as like not traditional, you know, type of gospel music associated with the church. So he was conflicted in that way. And then kind of like weaving into the vampires that attracted them
Mm.
in the first place
Mhm.
to because it was Sammy's music that
Yeah.
originally brought them to the juke joint.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just thought it was just masterfully done how he weaves all these different
Mhm.
themes and it all connects and there's layers to this. Yeah.
Oh, so many layers,
Yeah.
so many layers. Like even the music part, well, the music part, the whole movie really is
Yeah.
like an homage to the music. But music for me, like I kept thinking to myself, oh yeah, okay. So music is something that is both seen as this beautiful thing that unites people in the movie,
It gives them
and
power also
yes,
and identity, I would
yes,
say. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
And I also think all of that is sort of set against this backdrop
Uh-huh.
of what you were mentioning before with Sammy, like this idea that also it's also evil.
Yeah.
Like it's also been demonized. It's also,
Demonized, yeah.
something that it throughout, I don't know, throughout history, people have seen in particular like rock and roll and blues to be, music that's associated with something a little bit more sinister.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think this is another way of also showing historically when it comes to blues. I always think
How
about
blues was seen historically.
yes,
Because when you look at Elvis, right, who took his
yes,
moves and music from blues artists,
yeah,
he was seen as that was the devil's music.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
just a brilliant way to do it. Yeah.
Exactly, and that's why I think the whole thing worked. It just worked so well, right? Yeah.
And then also with the Resnick, the Irish vampire.
Oh yeah, remnant. Yeah.
There's so he's attracted. He brings his crew to the juke joint,
Yeah.
and he wants to enter the juke joint, but he has to be invited. So I
Yeah.
thought that was very interesting as well. With that, because that's a traditional rule of the vampires is they have to be invited in. So I thought that was amazing how he did that, but it also symbolized to me that the juke joint. I think originally they said it was a clan's house or something like that, but they took it over
Mm-hmm.
the smokestack twins and made it to their own juke joint.
Yeah.
And so I think that kind of symbolizes that because Resnick he does feel like he was colonized. He says that at one point, which that's another layer, historical layer as well.
Yep.
Irish people were definitely colonized by the English,
Yep.
right? So he felt he was on the same level, but he's also white, and I feel like the juke joint symbolizes um, the power of the space. They turn it into their own space, and it's the power of a black space and a black business.
Yeah. Yeah, I see that. That's a great take. Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely see that. Yeah, that's interesting. Because I do that. Yeah. I mean, nothing in the movie is there by accident. I
think it's all intentional. Yeah. I feel like the juke joint was like their space, it empowered them, it's their community.
Yeah,
as well.
I see that. I think that's really a great take, and that's also another reason why the vampire thing works really well. Because like you were saying, you have to be invited in, right?
Yeah.
So that's why we'll get to Mary. Oh, we'll get to Mary.
Oh,
we'll get to Mary. But
we could have a whole podcast.
Yes, we could. We'll get to Mary.
Yeah.
But that's why she's also very interesting, like in this movie. But yeah, the idea of like the vampire, so Remick, the head vampire, is Irish.
Yeah.
And you're so right. Like I didn't even really make that connection initially, but I think, I recently saw a comedian who was Irish talk about that connection between the Irish and Black Americans specifically, and the idea of how both were colonized. So yeah, that scene was really interesting to me to go back and watch it with that lens that like Remick didn't even recognize why he wouldn't be let in.
Yeah.
Because in his mind, he's like, well, maybe he's not seeing himself as somebody who is an oppressor or could be viewed that way. He's seeing himself as somebody, like you said, who also is just looking for community, has been oppressed, is like,
it is oppressed and has been colonized.
Yeah. And it's interesting because now as you say that as well, the juke joint used to be a sawmill. It was a sawmill. It was like the clans.
Yeah.
It was a sawmill, but it was also where the clans men.
Yeah.
Clans people. I want to be PC about it. Clans people went and basically murdered Black people, right? So there is something really interesting about them taking that space over and then making it a space that was their own and
empowering them.
Yeah. That's really...
And making it into their own business. Yeah.
That is really interesting.
Yeah.
I had a thought just now about the idea around the colonization too. Like that's another thing that I think the vampires represent in this movie, full stop.
Yeah.
Right? Because if I think about the idea of them coming in as vampires and then literally I'll call it converting some of the other people that were in the juke joint to come and join their community. It's like they're offering them this new culture, this new way of being, this new life.
Yeah.
But at the cost of they're going to lose their souls. They're going to lose like, what made them human, what made them whole, their own culture.
Yeah.
It's such a great, like, I don't know, just way of looking at colonization and how it tends to have that effect, like compounding effect.
Yeah.
Like he was coming from a colonized situation, now goes to America, is colonizing other people.
Yeah.
It's interesting. So vampires are a great way of saying that without saying it, right?
Exactly. Like you said, Resnick, you feel like he was colonized. He was on the same level. So he was wondering why he wasn't let in, but then he becomes the colonizer
Yeah.
too. So it shows you that it's a system, yeah, which repeats itself through history.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just so brilliantly done. Um, I also I wanted to. Well, I mean, should we get to Mary now, or do you want to?
No, we can get into Mary. I have a lot of thoughts about Mary.
Okay, I have thoughts on it too.
Yeah.
And not the thoughts that people probably think I'm going to have on the Mary situation.
Okay. I'm curious as
You know,
well what your thoughts
yeah.
are.
So, okay, Mary, the love interest of Stack, seems like to me, anyways, they were childhood friends, turned lovers, and then he essentially, um, you know, left her because of the fact that she was probably going to live a much worse life if she stayed with him. That's my takeaway from it. So I just want to set the table there.
Okay.
That's how I see that. So I see Mary as, I say this because I think it's important that people understand the context with her and the situation that she was in, because there's two things that I see with her on its face. Yeah, white devil. I see that. Okay.
Yeah.
Because historically, it is, and I even think in contemporary, like contemporary sort of like cultural, if you want to call them influencers, talk about the challenges that, you know, can arise for Black men, right? If they get involved with white women. Historically, it has been, uh, honestly, not to be dramatic, but to kind of mirror the movie, a matter of life and death.
Yeah.
Right. So there's that.
She was trouble. That's an understatement.
Yeah. Right. But then, so that's something that I think people are using to villainize her. Like, I think a lot of people are talking about this character, and even Haley Stanfield, which is a whole other thing. And
she was great.
Haley was
so good.
She was honestly really great performance. And then, outside of her performance, I think she also said that she did a lot of research into her background and her family history, and actually did discover she had some Black ancestry.
Yeah,
which made it even more powerful for her, and to take this role on. And I think probably more hurtful as well to see some of the reaction that maybe people may have had towards her character, because ultimately she does let the vampires basically go to town on the juke joint, right?
Yeah.
She kind of is the entry point. But I also see her as also a really a character that I have a lot of empathy for, because of what I mentioned at the top about her story with Stack. I think she really loves Stack, right? And
I was going to ask you that. Do you think she really loved him? Yeah.
I think she loved him. I think she really loves Stack. I think, in what I can gather, is
she was hurt by him.
Very hurt.
Yeah, you can tell in the opening scene at the train station, which is one of the most viral, scenes. Right?
You love this goddamn scene. So why don't you just go? Okay,
I watched it on repeat. You know what I'm talking about here.
For those of us who don't know what you're talking about, Andrew, what scene are, pray tell, what scene are we talking about?
She's talking about, I thought you loved me, because you did a certain activity to me.
Okay.
Did a certain activity, which was appreciated.
Bocce ball, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They definitely did some type of activity to her, which made her think that he loved her. Yeah. There was definitely a lot of like tension between the two of them, like the chemistry, the sexual tension was. Yeah, it was sexy, and nothing was shown either, right? Which was another great thing about the film too.
Yeah, like I know, like we were chatting about this, and I was just like,
it's a very sexy movie too.
Very sexy, my God. And I just realized on the second viewing, like I haven't seen any nudity. Like it's extremely sexy, but I don't think I saw any nudity.
No. No.
It was really quite a modest like
Yeah.
film, and maybe it's just because I'm so used to seeing so much of it elsewhere that I don't know if that's a choice that he made or maybe just didn't feel it was necessary. But the way that, like you said, like oh my gosh, the actors were talking to each other and like
Yeah.
just their body language, the tension, they just really they didn't need it. It was just oh my gosh, it was a really really beautiful story between them, and I believe it was a love story. I
Yeah.
just think it was a different story than the main love story, which for me was between Annie and Smoke.
Hmm.
That was for me the love story. Like I think of it as like if I'm going to sell this movie,
Yeah.
I'm going to sell it on Michael B. Jordan and Haley Stanfield on the poster. That's how I'm going to market this movie.
Yeah.
That's the love story. But the actual love story that emerged for me was the love story between Smoke and Annie. That's the love story for me.
And yeah, I agree. And yeah, I want to get into that as well. But
Yeah.
about Mary though, what I also liked about her character too, which is another kind of layer to her character, is she does acknowledge that she is mixed in the
Yep.
film, and I'm glad they did that because it seems like her character struggles with her own identity.
Yeah.
Because at first she's not allowed
Yeah.
into the juke joint, right? Because she is, she appears to be white, but
Mm-hmm.
she's actually mixed, and she's the first one who's turned as well, which is interesting to me. She's the first one that goes out to to talk to the to Resnick and his crew, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot. I think there's a lot of meaning behind that too. She kind of wanted to go that route in a way, yeah,
Yeah.
because she
Well, I
didn't really
mean,
know her identity.
that's a good
I
point.
feel like she struggles a bit.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
definitely I'm glad you brought that up. I'm
yeah.
glad you pivoted back to Mary. I so love Annie and Smoke. I can't wait to get there.
Oh yeah,
But
we're gonna
there's
get
so
there
much to
too.
talk about
Yeah,
with
yeah,
Mary. I agree. I think Mary, to your point, that's another reason why I don't like villainize her right away,
yeah.
like vilify her,
Exactly.
excuse
Yeah,
me, because I feel like she's somebody too, who's just a victim of her circumstance.
yeah, exactly.
And to your
Yeah,
point, like her being white passing did not prevent her from suffering the same fate. She
yeah,
didn't have any privilege being white passing in that particular scenario.
yeah.
If anything, it probably created more issues for her because she felt like she could use her privilege to go in,
She became one of the colonizer vampires, basically.
exactly.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
she was trying to like kind of like, oh, I'll go feel out the vampires because
yeah,
I can get in, where I fit in as a white person or white passing. And yet that completely backfired on her. So I think I don't know what Ryan Coogler wants to say there. I haven't heard him specifically speak to
yeah,
this,
yeah,
but I definitely know that again, historically, that idea of that kind of one drop in your blood making you not white in that time period, he
yeah.
captured that really well.
Oh, you
And
did, yeah,
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 I do think Mary's character, I felt for her because on some level, she was in between worlds.
yeah,
She's obviously in the juke joint because they saw her as family,
yeah.
right? But she's never going to be black,
Yeah, she was never completely accepted by
do
either
you know?
one.
And
Yeah,
yet,
yeah,
yeah, she's not white either.
yeah,
She's kind of in between worlds, which I think is
yeah,
something that, it speaks to that sort of tension that people that have, um, I don't know, have multiple identities or mixed race heritage that they have to deal with. I think even still today,
yeah,
right? And I'm
yeah,
saying think, and I replace think with I know. It's definitely not easy, and I think there's a lot of people that are reacting to Mary based on the historical trope of obviously the black man with the white woman and you know historically the problems that have come when that's happened. So Stack telling Mary to go marry a white dude, go live a good life, that was in my mind actually coming from a place of love.
yeah.
I actually, upon my second viewing, I actually
Okay,
thought,
yeah,
yes.
that's
I
interesting.
thought, yeah,
And she was
definitely.
definitely hurt. She was very hurt by him too. You
Yep.
could tell. Yeah,
Totally. And
yeah,
and who can blame her? Like I
yeah,
think if I put myself in her shoes just as a woman, as a person, as a human,
yeah,
I'd feel the same way. I would feel discarded. But I actually look at that move now on Stack's part
yeah,
as like a actually very a self-sacrificing move because
yeah,
I think he loved her too, but he's like we're not going to have a good life. We're not going to have a good life. You'll have a better life if you go and live with white people and
yeah,
pass as white. So I think that was actually coming from a place of really good intention.
yeah. And then, so Mary ends up killing Stack. Yeah, that was a pretty intense scene in which I
It
that was
was.
pretty.
It was.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting it. Well, I obviously knew that one of the twins would turn, but
Yeah.
yeah, that was a pretty wild scene. Yeah,
Yeah, it was. I mean, I think, yeah, it was more about how is it going to happen,
yeah,
not what's going to happen. That's what made this one also really interesting is that I think I went into it knowing exactly what was, I knew it was about vampires. Like I knew
yeah,
vampires were going to show up at some point,
yeah.
but like we're halfway through the movie. We haven't even seen anyone turn, bite, suck. Like we haven't seen anything. It's so the way that he paced it was just, I thought really well done.
Yeah.
It's like he set up this world and like gave us the background we needed to understand the complexity of the characters.
Mhm.
And it's really the second half where like the vampires went to town.
Yeah,
And even then it was like in a very classy way. I don't think it was like it was a horror movie, but if you're not into horror, I think you could still enjoy this movie on different levels.
I agree. I
Yeah.
agree. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, we did talk about Mary. Is there anything left as far as Mary's concerned? Like, do we want to get into anything else with her right now, or can we look at our other?
No, I think we can move on
Okay.
to Annie.
Okay, let's
Yeah,
move
yeah.
on to Annie.
All right.
Okay, okay. So what are your thoughts on Annie?
I mean, I love this movie for so many reasons, and one of the things I love about this movie is that each character represents. There's different. There's different layers to each character, and each character I feel like represents something else as well. I feel like Annie represents almost like a safe haven, and I think she's like
Mm.
she takes care of the community as well, and I think that was I think that's historically and culturally, very accurate as well. A black woman taking care of the community and wanting the best for the community because there's one scene in the film where she accepts. I forget what she accepts, but it was at no cost to her own community because she just wanted to help them out. And
Mm.
also, she has a great love as well. But I think that's kind of what she represented for me too in the
Mhm.
film. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
I
also she represents like she does do with charms and stuff, which is
yes.
mentioned, and
Yeah.
it's not
Mm.
traditional with the church, so
Mhm.
that's seen as maybe sinful in the eyes of the church. She represents some sort of like charms and mythology of the
Yeah.
culture as well. So that was part of her character too, which was interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I really loved this character.
Yeah.
I felt exactly as you felt that she was sort of like the custodian for her community
Yeah.
and also the
Because
custodian.
she's the first one that recognizes that these are vampires,
Yes.
right? So,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, definitely smarter than the average bear.
Yeah.
Definitely the custodian of her community, but also, as you said, like because she was also practicing like I'll say like traditional sort of spirituality or like magic, black
Yeah.
magic. It was interesting to see her juxtaposed with the overarching sort of Christian vibe in the South. She would have been very radical
Oh,
at that
definitely. Yeah.
time.
That was not approved by the church.
Definitely,
Yeah.
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 So I really also kind of respected her for multiple reasons, but
Yeah.
obviously, like the care that she had for everyone around her.
Mhm.
But it was also like what you said, this idea that she was quite wise. She had this worldly wisdom,
Uh-huh.
and a pride as well, like
Yeah.
in that wisdom and in the ways in which she was brought up and what made sense for that community. And I think that it makes complete sense that she was with Smoke
Why do you say that?
because just what you said off the top
Yeah.
about her being very protective, about her being somebody who really took care of her community, her
Yeah.
family. I could see that he also had the same values. Because
Yeah.
if I look at Smoke, Smoke was also a protector, a nurturer, a provider. Smoke also, in his own way, I
Yeah.
think really cared a lot about the Black community.
Yeah.
And I don't really, I mean, so the two brothers came back together, obviously. I mean, I have some thoughts about maybe why they came back, but with Smoke coming back, you could see the difference between him and Stack in that Smoke was He was not willing to do everything that Stack was willing to do. So Smoke was really about, this is like a kind of FUBU situation. It's for us by us. Like,
Yeah.
I don't really need to get involved in expanding it, doing it right away. He even wanted to wait to make sure that everything was done so meticulously. So very cautious, which is not necessarily indicative of him being a match for Annie. But
Yeah.
what it suggests to me is throughout the movie, it seemed like he was really, really just concerned with protecting and providing those who were close to him
Yeah.
in his community. And that seemed to be a core value that Annie had as well. And I also, yeah, I kind of see Smoke being obviously not as charismatic as Stack. I don't know. Maybe this says something about me. Maybe if you asked me like 4 or 5 years ago, I would have been like all about Stack. But I really responded to Smoke for some reason. I think it's probably just I saw in him a more I don't know, the word snake oil is coming to mind with Stack. I feel like
Yeah.
Smoke was more, I don't know, more steadfast, more like loyal, more I just felt he was more grounded for me. Like I
Yeah.
more practical, which is not necessarily, it doesn't equate to sexy for me per se.
He also knew how to navigate more this landscape too than I feel like Stack. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they were perfect complements to each
Yeah.
other. In fact, actually, when you say that, because Stack was really, I mean, he was the Flash. He was
Yeah.
the person who could, he
The
had the
businessman. Yeah.
businessman, the
Yeah.
sales guy. He had that charisma, right? But yeah, Smoke, I think, just there's something about the more quiet understand. In this case,
And I think Stack was more like volatile, maybe, or like emotional, as not as strategic as much as Smoke was.
and that's it.
Yeah.
Because when push comes to shove,
Yeah.
at the end of the day,
Impulsive.
that
Maybe.
is
Yeah.
what got him probably into trouble,
Yeah. Yeah.
and like,
Yeah.
whereas, and I don't know, like if it would have turned out any differently. I mean, obviously it could have maybe gone differently, but it's just, yeah, the character traits that he had were just amazing to watch. But long term, they, to your point, got him into, I think they're the same traits that got him into, led him to temptation, if you will.
Yeah.
And, uh, well, we know what happened after they went in the room together. So I think it's the fact that he was, he was a little bit less practical, a little bit less methodical. Like he was very um, business oriented and strategic and flashy, and I guess had the riz, but like there was something more that resonated with me with Smoke.
Yeah.
I just really liked Smoke's love for. Oh, I'm not realizing something. You're watching an aha moment in real time. Oh my god! Of course, I like Smoke more because I just realized. So Stack was he wasn't really, there's nothing wrong with Smoke and Stack as a couple, like of people together. They complemented each other perfectly, but each one on their own I think was lacking something. And with Stack, I felt like Stack, because he was naturally put in this position of pushing Mary away, of he was kind of at least seen initially as this kind of a player, maybe seemed a little more callous.
Yeah.
Of course, I liked Smoke because Smoke was immediately much more devoted to his woman. So that's probably, honestly, forget everything I just said. It's probably just that.
Yeah. Well, you want the Smoke. All right. I was going to ask you, which twin do you prefer? It's pretty obvious.
The Smoke, yeah.
And anyone, all our alchemists who are watching, we would love to hear which twin you preferred. Who was hotter? Was it Stack or Smoke? Obviously, we know Antoinette wants the Smoke.
Right? I want the Smoke, that's for sure. Yeah, that's a great question. We'll have to poll them afterwards.
Yeah, I'd be curious.
Yeah.
To know.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, yeah, I think Annie and Smoke just had a really beautiful relationship, and we can talk about the ending that met Smoke and Stack.
Very sexy scene too. Also, yeah. You obviously know what I'm talking about when they get physical.
Yeah,
Again, nothing was
beautiful.
shown. It was just a very sexy scene in a different way, sexy in a different type of sexiness as
Hmm.
opposed to Mary as well.
Yeah, and I think that was really special because it's
There's
not
a
that
real love
often.
there, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and also like, can I just say it? Like, we don't often see uh, in a feature film a Michael B. Jordan cast with, somebody who is like, so the actress Wunmi Mosaku, right,
Who's
Nigerian actress,
amazing.
amazing actress. Um,
I hope she gets nominated for something for this.
See, I mean, I
Yeah,
guess we'll see what happens
yeah,
with Sinners, how people respond to it being a horror movie.
yeah. That's I'll be curious.
Yeah.
We saw Substance, this year, which is a horror, technically a horror movie,
Yeah, I
get
was just going to
nominated.
say,
But
yeah, it could be the turning point.
yeah,
Maybe they'll start looking at horror with a different lens, right?
yeah, yeah,
But yeah, I think this actress did a wonderful job, and she's a full figured, like, dark, dark sister, which is really something I actually don't see in casting a lot.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that was really beautiful to see that on screen too.
Yeah. I saw
Mm,
Sinners twice.
I
The
did.
first time I saw Sinners, when I there's a scene when Resnick is
Remick?
Remnick,
Yep.
right? Remnick, yes,
Yep.
sorry. Remnick is so he's already converted Stack.
Mm-hmm.
He's turned Stack. Well, Mary has turned Stack, and then they're all dancing outside to the Irish music,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't understand that scene, but looking back at that scene, I think it kind of meant something else as well, like why they were all dancing to Irish music at that point as vampires. Do you have any thoughts on that, or do you want me to like?
Well, I feel like
As far as what my thoughts were on that is, I just felt like you said before, nothing in this film is like by accident. I
yep.
feel like, and what that scene meant to me is that once I thought about it, is that so these vampires were colonized. They're basically the colonizers,
Yeah.
and they're trying to take over,
Yep.
right? And they're taking over this black space.
Yep.
And then they're also, I felt like that, and then they're dancing to Irish music now, all of them, even Stack is,
Mm-hmm.
right? I felt like it symbolizes the culture appropriation, right? Just taking over the culture and by the colonizers. And I just thought that was a very like powerful scene too. Yeah.
Yeah. So I made some notes on this because I wanted to come legit to this
Okay.
conversation. um, yeah, you absolutely just took the words right off my page. Absolutely. I think like the fact that the Irish and Black Americans, African Americans
Yeah.
share this like unfortunate kind of tragic lineage of oppression is why it made sense that this was an Irish vampire. And I also feel that the music part, so, that's something I think continues to this day
Yeah.
to be something that is a point of contention for many artists. But especially, I think, when we look at how society, even today, profits off of the artistry of Black artists
Yeah.
or of Black culture,
Yeah.
I think that's something. And you mentioned Elvis before. You mentioned the fact that, like, this was, like, the blues has been, honestly, I'll be generous and say has been adopted, has been adapted.
Yeah.
But let's call it what it is. Like, in many cases, I think the music industry has appropriated a lot of culture from Black artists historically,
Hmm.
and left them with very little actually in the process. Which is why I also think this is interesting. And I don't have all the particulars on the deal.
Hmm.
Maybe you can enlighten us on it if you do know anything about Coogler's deal, Andrew. But that was another thing that made headlines throughout the entire
Oh yeah.
campaign for this, promotional run. Is that Coogler specifically said he wanted to retain the rights to the movie after a certain period of time.
Yeah. I don't know how many years it is.
Mm.
I felt like it was like it's at least 10 years
Yeah,
plus.
it's a pretty significant
It's a
time.
pretty aggressive
Yeah.
number of years, but in the end, it goes back to him. He's the
Yes.
soul, which it should.
Yes.
Yeah. Then he didn't want to talk about it, and then I feel like it was asked to him in different interviews, and he didn't want to get into it. And I respect him about that as well.
Mm,
Why wouldn't he want to? Because this should happen more often, And I just think he wanted to focus on the actual film, and not talk about that. But
true.
also, I think it just should be not even in the discussion. It's in the discussion, like it's not addressed by typically
Mm,
other
yeah.
similar type deals that have done with
Hmm.
I'll just say white directors and producers. That never gets brought up in interview. Like, why was it brought up in this interview? I feel like,
That's interesting. So
yeah, that's just
yeah.
my opinion.
No, that's a great, I mean, that's a great take. And obviously
Yeah,
you're right. Like, why ask this director
yeah,
about the business and the commerce of how he made his film versus other
yeah,
directors?
yeah.
I'll respectfully say that I actually think in this case, it is a question that I would ask.
Oh, yeah,
Like
yeah. Okay.
if I were a journalist, I would ask this question.
Well, it's an interesting question.
I can ask it whether or
Yeah,
not he has to answer it. That's another
true,
question,
true.
right?
Yeah, that's fair.
But I would
Yeah,
ask it based on what I was just saying about the idea that, at the end of the day, it's like he is going to own his IP. So I don't know if he was making a statement, but it's kind of apropos. Like, in this scene here, we've been talking about the music and the appropriation of music,
yeah.
and that, it could be in historically like a black blues musician would literally, like, they would talk about selling their soul, right, to sign like a contract, get
Hmm.
nothing out of it. So this is where Coogler, I'm not a player move, man. Like, I'll take money off the theater, like cut off the seats. That's
Yeah,
such a player move because he probably went in there with an absolutely insane pitch. I'm going to do a vampire period
you're
piece,
right.
like
Yeah.
all black, like an insane pitch. Like us, honestly, a studio head must have been like, I mean, the guy's bankable. He did Black Panther, but when he said, I want to cut off the seats, they probably just thought, yeah, okay, sure, because this movie is not going to make as much money as you think.
Oh, yeah, true. Yeah,
And
exactly.
he knew people would come out. He knew people would come out. So that was a player move on his part. But
I'm
then,
glad he got that deal.
oh my
Yeah,
God, such a good
yeah,
deal.
yeah.
And then I think in part us knowing about that and people asking him that was one of the reasons, in fact, that I said, I'm going to go back out and see it again. Let's put some money in this man's pocket because I knew that was the deal.
And
If I
this is
didn't know that,
and also the deal was that it's after a certain amount of years. It's something like 10
yeah,
plus, maybe even 15, 20 years. But this film is going to stand the test of time. Like,
definitely,
it's gonna you're gonna be
definitely,
where people are gonna be talking about this movie
definitely.
for many years down the road. Yeah,
Oh yeah,
it's
it's
gonna live.
culturally
Yeah,
extremely
yeah,
significant film, and I think
yeah,
people will be analyzing it for years to come.
yeah. I agree.
And I think now we're also going to see, like maybe it's going to be like I don't know, the genre bending era. Like maybe this is going to be like the horror era for filmmakers, and like to see what he, I won't belabor the point too much more, just a little bit more. But the fact that like he
Yeah,
decided at the end that he's going to actually own his own property,
yeah,
that makes sense because then black man owns his property. It makes sense. So I don't know if he was thinking that when he did that, but if he did that, what a player move. I mean, like, I really love that. And so that's why I think I would ask that question if I were in that seat. And I would totally respect if he's like, I want to talk about that.
hmm,
But at least the first couple of, interviews that he did, I think that is an interesting and important piece of information. And if he really didn't want to talk about it at the outset, he would that could have been totally embargoed. We
yeah,
wouldn't necessarily need to know. But I think you're right. I think it was initially done in a way to somehow discredit what he was doing, or maybe the focus on him asking as a black filmmaker was not necessarily coming from the same intentionality that like the same reporters would ask a white director.
yeah,
However, I think, you know, jokes on them because actually that information, like I said, I think it made a lot of people in the black community go, let's show up for this guy. Let's make sure
mhm,
we
I agree.
pack these theaters
Yeah,
3, 4, multiple times. I know people that have seen it multiple times for that reason alone. So,
yeah,
and in fact, it's an amazing movie, but
yeah.
yeah.
No, that's very well said. Yeah, I agree.
But art and commerce make very strange bedfellows, and so I think that was also something that was actually really well represented in the movie as well.
Yeah.
So maybe Coogler also addressed, like, there's so many things that I'm now thinking are meta about this movie.
Yeah.
But definitely there was a lot of talk about money. I think money was another really prominent theme in this
Money
movie.
definitely was. It was it was a symbol of power, but then also because that's
Yeah.
what Smoke and Stack were. They wanted to make money, right? They started on juke joint to make their business,
Mm-hmm.
and it's almost as similar as like Black Wall Street as well.
Mm.
I thought, and but then also they were denied money too. So it's also taken away from them as well. Yeah,
Yeah, it's true. And, I think about how you said that, they were denied money. It was taken away from them. They earned it in some kind of nefarious way, like
yeah.
robbing banks, from what I can tell. And
Because they showed at the movie, they said that they used to work for Al Capone.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. And I think that Annie mentioned as well, too, like, when I think Smoke was offering her like a clip full of bills, and she kind of looked at him like, I don't want your blood money. So
yeah,
this idea that
yeah.
your money is no good here. But then also the same thing when the um just a bunch of little boys, but throughout the movie they were like obviously black people bringing coins, like plantation coins,
Yeah,
and those coins only had value in those communities. If you took them outside those communities, they had no value. So
yeah.
I think that was really interesting, and like one way the twins would have seen this money, like, this is not real money, like, this is not good
The
money.
coins,
The
yeah,
coins are no good. Like,
yeah,
let's make some real money here. And so there's a discomfort with, or not discomfort, but rather like money itself becomes symbolic of, it's a source obviously of power because it's a resource that can get you what you need, i.e. if you want to build a juke joint, throw a clip at a guy and you get a place to do it. It can make your dreams come true, but it can also be the thing that can be a source of evil and probably misfortune too.
yeah. I agree.
Yeah. So it was an interesting one, I think, as well, as far as themes go, money. Yeah.
And I also wanted to ask you the post-credit scene.
Hmm.
So I know I kind of
Mm.
jumped ahead,
No,
but
we'll go all over the place.
I actually didn't see the post-credit scene. I missed it. The first time I went, I mean, I only saw it once, but I read about it
Yeah.
afterwards. And my question to you, now that you've seen it twice,
Mm-hmm.
is when when Annie
Mm-hmm.
and and Smoke,
Yeah.
yeah, when they go back to Sammy, who's now, later in his life, he's a famous blues
Oh, with Stack
artist. Stack
and
and
Mary go
Mary,
back.
sorry,
Yeah.
yeah, Stack and Mary. When they go and approach him and they give him a proposition, do you want to be turned?
Yep.
And he declines.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think he declines?
Yeah. Okay. So I saw that scene. So that was the mid credit scene.
Yeah, the mid-credit scene.
Mid credit
Yeah,
scene. I
yeah.
did see that scene. And I think I didn't get that scene until the second viewing.
Okay.
So the
Yeah.
second viewing, because I had all these questions. I was like, why doesn't he just kill him right now? He's like, why doesn't he?
And also, if he was turned, he could live forever.
Right now, that is the issue. I
Yeah.
realized that if if he were to live forever, in the same way that, there's this promise of immortality and eternal life,
Yeah.
he's actually already got that through his music. His music and his legacy will live on forever. And if he wants to actually, much like Smoke, wanted to be with his family and reunite
Yeah.
with his family, like him taking that deal, the immortality, it's actually in its own way, it's its own prison. It's not freedom. I actually, so to answer your question plainly, the reason why I believe like he didn't take it, one, also, he's an old man at this point. And I think at one point Stack even said
Yeah.
like sniffed him and was like, "Oh, you don't have much longer." Like he could
You could tell
sense
he's on the way.
you're on the way out, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that the obvious thing that Sammy, who played by Buddy Guy, said was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
I've seen enough, man. I've been here long enough. I've seen enough. I'm good." And I think it's also because, yeah, the music, he lives on through his music. There's nothing they could offer him
Yeah.
at this point, and also the practicality of it. Yeah, he's an old man. Like, do you want to live on? Like, knowing what you've seen and knowing the life that you'd be giving up. Like if in fact he's coming from this Christian background, this idea of like eternal life and, to see his family again or to see Smoke again, like if he believes like his roots are in the church and believes that like I'm going to go on to perhaps a better place after this.
Yeah.
And I've seen all this, there's all this crazy shit on this planet. Like, why would you, especially when you're old? Like, I think if you're going to get turned, you got to get turned at like the right age. Like, I think if you get turned when you're old and you don't have that much, like, I don't know, actual stamina or like,
do you want to? You want to be looking
vampire?
good when you're turned.
You want
right?
to look good.
You want to be in your prime.
You want to be in your prime. You want to be in your prime, and I think that. Or maybe if you get turned, maybe you instantly.
Do you go back to your prime?
I think you stay the same.
You stay the same, right?
My understanding, my education from multiple vampire movies has been
I think you stay the same.
You stay the same, but do you get like some kind of mojo and like?
I think you would get some mojo for sure.
I don't know. I think there's a mojo rising from that. I don't know. I don't know that I would want to be turned though at his age, and maybe that's why he said no, in my opinion. But I'm curious.
No, that's a great point. No, when I first watched it, I was like, why wouldn't he be turned? Because he's old, right? And he could live forever and play his music forever. But that's exactly what you said. He already is eternal. I like that beautiful scene earlier in the film, which foreshadows this scene in a way, where they show the future of the music, that was influenced by his blues music. So he's doing his passion already. He's already going to live forever, and he's going to influence a future black artists as well. Yeah.
So what more could they possibly offer him? There's nothing they could offer him.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So that's how I saw it. But admittedly, I didn't really see that the first time. I was just confused as like to why they just strut into this bar and like they just left him. Like, why would you do something like that? But then it makes total sense. And
because when he first asked them, I was like, "Are you sure you want to think about that? I think you want to think about that."
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
The other thing too, which is also really important, is that when Smoke let Stack live. So at the very end, when they were in the barn, and he could have staked him, he didn't, and he let him go.
Oh yeah.
Right. Which is why he's now walking back in with Mary, right? Because Smoke ultimately let him go.
Yeah.
Smoke asked him not to touch Sammy, which I didn't pick up on the first time.
I didn't pick up. I didn't pick up.
The second time I heard Stack say that in the bar, I probably buried the lead there. Probably should have led with that. He did ask him. His brother said, "Leave him alone." Like I forgot how he said it, but he basically said he promised him, "I won't touch Sammy." So that was what kept Sammy safe that whole time. And so unless Sammy really wanted to turn, there was no reason for Stack to do anything because he made that promise to his brother, right? And it was the last thing he could honor in that, what was left of him and his brother's relationship, I felt too. But yeah.
And there's also, speaking of Sammy again with the guitar too, like he idolizes that guitar, and it's seen by the church. You shouldn't idolize something like that. So that's another why his dad doesn't approve as well. Because he idolizes that guitar. It gives him power. And also there's this, I noticed originally Smoke gives him the guitar, right?
Yep.
And he says that it's from a famous real life jazz musician. I forget what his name is.
I want to say Charlie Patton.
I think it's something like that. But then he tells him later that he was lying, and it's actually not his guitar.
Right.
But it still empowers him. I forget the way he puts it, because it's your heritage, and this is your purpose. So I feel like that's great how he positions that, and he tells him that he empowers them to make your music, and this is going to give you your power, basically. Yeah, you don't have to live through, idolize this because it was some famous jazz musicians before. Yeah.
And
that was cool.
It was, and I think that's Yeah, that's something that was really powerful throughout the whole movie for me. It was the idea of, again, like the power of music. And like you said earlier, the music led the vampires to them. So
Yeah,
it has some sinister quality to it as well. But then it's just ultimately what saved them is that same guitar. So that double-edged sword of how music, and specifically probably blues music in this case, was viewed at
yeah.
that time, right? Was really historically accurate as well, too.
And I was going to ask you, so when Stack it becomes a vampire,
Hmm.
there's that scene where he's talking to his brother Smoke, and he's trying to entice him to join us, right? And why do you think? Why don't you think he goes and joins his brother at
Can you
that
remind me,
point?
like, which part? So obviously, I know you're talking about at some point after
He gets
he
turned.
gets turned,
Yeah,
and he's outside with the other
he's
vampires.
outside with the other
Okay. Yep.
vampires, and he's talking, and the door's open. They haven't let them in, obviously,
Hmm.
and Stack is trying to entice his brother Smoke to join us.
Yeah.
Like we're brothers,
Yeah.
right? Like, why are you coming with me? Why don't you think he joins them at that point?
So can you? Okay, was Annie still alive at that point?
And he was still alive. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So I think there was a moment where they're at the door, which is what I think what you're talking
yeah, yeah,
about,
yeah.
and he had this look in his eye where I felt like he was almost thinking
I felt like he
maybe.
was like he was tempted.
I think
Because it is his
so.
brother, right?
Yeah,
He loves
and
his
they're
brother.
twins, and they have this powerful
Can
connection.
you imagine if you're in the same scenario?
I can't
Your sibling
imagine.
out there, how could you not join your sibling?
Well,
That's it.
I could
When you think
imagine.
about that context, like, yes, it is a horror movie, but
Yeah.
like your sibling has just come to the dark side, right? And how do you not like let them? How do you not like go with them?
Yeah, because you're still seeing them as who they are.
Yeah, exactly.
And I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
that's maybe why he didn't do it, is that every part of him, every part of his, like, every fiber in his being, like, really wanted to be with him. But, and I remember, again, Annie for the win, like, she may have even said, that's not your brother,
Oh yeah, I think she does
right?
say
So I
that.
think at
Yeah,
one point he was almost like, oh, my brother, but then she kind of like snapped him out of it, like,
yeah,
no, he's not your brother.
yeah. He's not your brother.
And he had to keep reminding himself, yeah, right, that's not my brother.
Yeah,
Right. So I think that's also what led him to believe, like, no, I can't, like, they're not, it wouldn't be right. It wouldn't be right. And ultimately,
and also standing his ground too, right?
yeah,
This is his space. This is what he
yeah,
built, and this is the community he built as
yeah,
well. Because the vampires, again, they're symbolizing colonizers, right?
yeah,
And he's not going to be free, even though he's going to be eternal. He's not going to be free if he becomes a vampire.
yeah.
Yeah.
The themes of the movie, one character that I really, really loved, we've peppered him throughout our conversation here, is obviously the character Sammy, played by Miles Caton.
He was discovered. He was a real musician, discovered by Ryan and Michael B, I assume. And oh
And
yeah,
her.
oh yeah, yeah, and her, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, yeah. So amazing performance. This is his first movie, and yeah, he blew me away in this film. Yeah.
Yeah. Incredible. Incredible. And I heard that he actually learned how to play. I mean, he knew how to play a little bit, but he actually had to learn how to play that style of guitar,
Oh, okay.
which is incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible. So I can't wait to see what he does next. He was amazing. And I mean, I think Delroy Lindo is honestly one of those people. He's so clutch in pretty much whatever he does.
Yeah.
I loved his character Delta Slim. I thought that was a really, and also too, he kind of saved the day, like by allowing himself to be vampire food while the others were taking off, right?
Yeah.
Like he's just so great. I really liked his character too. That was a nice comic relief amongst like kind of some of the more serious things going on there as well.
Yeah, and I saw an interview with Delroy Lindo. Actually, he originally he was approached for the film, and he traditionally doesn't like horror movies, so he
Oh
wasn't
wow.
really interested. But then as he read more about it and talked with Ryan, he liked Ryan's work, obviously, But the way just like we were saying, it's not a traditional horror movie, so
Hmm.
that's some of the reasons why he decided to join the cast. Yeah.
I'm so glad he did, man.
Yeah.
He's great. It's funny because you see movies, you think to yourself, the role is so iconic now. Like, I
Yeah.
can't imagine anyone else in that role. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people we could recast in these roles, but I think the casting was really well done. I
I
kind of
agree.
like that it wasn't necessarily everyone that's a household name. I kind of like that as well, too.
Yeah, me too. Me
Yeah,
too.
it was fantastic. All right, where do we want to go from here? Because we talked a lot about characters, scenes. There is one scene.
Which scene?
So at the end, with Smoke.
Okay.
Okay, Smoke's fate, how he goes out. There's a whole thing there, right? Like he sets up this ambush.
Yeah.
At the end,
I guess
right?
the Klansmen
Yeah.
were trying to take the juke joint, right?
Yeah, they're coming back to basically kill everybody that was partying in the juke joint.
Yeah.
Right. So he sets up this if anyone here is
which is historically accurate as well.
Yeah.
Just destroying black businesses.
Yep.
Throughout history. Yeah. So that's another layer, right? Which is amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And so he wastes all the clans people. And then at the end, he's
such a badass scene with that machine gun.
Gosh, so good. So good. It's very satisfying.
Yeah, very satisfying.
More satisfied, but
I felt like
people getting mowed down. It's really
I felt like cheering.
Yeah. It's true. You do feel kind of like, is this wrong that I'm cheering? But I mean, it feels so right. It feels so right.
I really like that. I was sad to see Smoke, end up dying, but it is a great way to go out, though. He does get almost like the hero's ending.
Yeah, he does.
He's the hero, right? He sees Annie and his baby, and they're white and in white, and they're almost like angels.
Yeah,
and it's just like the hero's ending for Smoke, which he deserved.
Absolutely, came full circle.
Yeah,
I really wanted to see that, and I think for me, I felt complete seeing that. That I knew that he was going to be happy. He was going to go on to let's reunite with
join them. Yeah,
like that was really important to see that. And so I think
that's who he wanted to join. He didn't want to join, the vampires.
Exactly. Yeah. Even though the vampires were offering him, obviously, to reunite with his brother, this community. Because I remember that was a big thing for the vampires, and Remic's pitch was really join this amazing community. We're going to give you something that you besides immortal life, everything that you want. And the juke join his community. Well, come and join our community. So I thought it was really interesting to then have the two brothers kind of take these different paths. But I was really happy how Smoke's story came to an end. I think that was it felt right. It felt right.
It definitely did.
Yeah. And I mean, we talked a little bit about the whole idea of making the choice. Would you want to be turned?
Yeah.
I gotta ask, if the conditions were right, you were not in obvious peril, and you were just kind of offered the opportunity to become a vampire, would you take it? As you are now, at this age, state, everything now, would you go for it?
I would not. I mean, we'll talk about vampires in film. They're very cool. They're like the rock stars typically in film.
Yeah.
They're definitely sexy.
Yeah.
Which we'll be talking about. But yeah, I wouldn't want to be turned because that's not the type of life I would like to live. I mean, not only living forever, that does seem appealing on the surface, but if you actually live forever, I think it would be a very lonely existence.
Totally.
I don't think it would be as good as you think it is. Living forever, seeing all these people die around you, and then also having to kill people. Oh, that's a lot of blood, and I don't do well with blood, so that's another reason why I wouldn't want to be turned and turn other people. And that's too dark for me.
No.
Right?
Word.
I'm not into the dark arts, for the record. But I think vampires are pretty cool in film, but I wouldn't want to be turned myself. What about you?
Same.
Yeah.
Everything you said.
Okay.
Everything you said. I would hate
Yeah.
to live forever and just
Yeah.
going on endlessly while people are dying around me. I
Yeah.
feel like it's like being like, you go like, like I'm not quite there yet, but like I could certainly feel this,
Yeah.
like, you go to the club and when you're like young and hip and it's a different vibe than like seeing like the 50, 60-year-old guy in the club, you know, and it's kind of like that
Yeah.
dazed and confused situation. They're
That's
all
a
getting
great
younger and you're
analogy.
staying the same. It's just,
Like, aren't you too old for this? You're still in
yeah,
the club. Yeah, you're still
yeah.
rocking the same, same fit, all right, for
Fit, you know,
hundreds of years,
right,
right? Yeah.
right.
So,
The lace cravat and the like,
yeah,
it's kind of like, but I just feel like it wouldn't be, like you said, it wouldn't be as fun as it may
as
sound on paper.
glamorous as it seems, I feel.
It sounds very rock and roll, and then at the same time,
Yeah.
the murdering part is also something that I think would leave a bad taste in my mouth.
Yeah.
I'm not big on blood, guts either. I think I would have. I mean, I think I would have a problem actually trying to
Yeah.
survive as a vampire, the
Mhm.
lifestyle of a vampire. Um, so I would say no. I would pass on that
Yeah.
myself. Yeah.
Yeah. That'd be a hard pass for me too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, like, speaking of, being turned, like, when I was watching the film, it didn't really register that all the people that were turned, the characters that were turned for a reason, right? They all sinned.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was very interesting as well. Like, what was the sin of each of the characters?
Yeah.
Some was more blatant
Yeah.
why they were turned, what the sin was, but some it wasn't that you kind of have to dig a bit deeper why they were. Yeah.
That's so
Yeah.
true. And I mean, duh, the movie's called Sinners,
Yeah.
but it's like
Right.
I didn't even
I
register.
mean, it didn't register when I was watching it. Maybe I don't
But
know. Maybe I was needed some more coffee or something. I don't
may-
know. Yeah.
maybe it was so obvious. It was
Yeah.
like, well, I mean,
Yeah.
but like, let's do a roll call here. Okay. So like, what were the sins for, well, we talked a bit about Mary. Like, what was her sin?
Yeah. So Mary's sin was that
Hmm.
she was um,
She was born a crime, maybe.
she was very sinful because she was like she tempted. She's the temptress, so
Yeah.
very sexual
Yeah.
as well. I feel like that was her sin. Very
Was
lustful.
she not married to the white guy?
Oh, I'm not sure.
Because that would be big old adultery. That's a big one.
Oh yeah, that's like
I think she was.
I think she was. I
She
think
was
that was
married. So I think
mentioned.
that would
Yeah.
be. I think
So
that.
that's her big sin. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Because I mean, like I'm trying to think about like, well, I mean, uh,
Yeah.
the lust is one thing, but I think it's probably the lust plus the fact. I
And
don't
then the
remember
other
for sure.
character who seduces Sammy,
Hmm.
right? So
Oh
we didn't even
yeah.
talk about.
Oh my God, we didn't even talk about her.
No, we did not.
Perlene.
She's
Yes.
great as well.
Great.
Yeah,
Yes.
great
Oh yeah.
performance.
Definitely. Yeah.
Um,
Mm.
she sins
Mm.
because she's committing adultery. She
Oh,
says in the opening
oh,
scene
she
that
committed adultery already.
she's
Yeah.
married. Yeah.
She most definitely did.
Yeah.
Yeah, she forgot her about her
It's
husband
another
very
sexy
quickly.
scene too.
Very sexy
Yeah,
scene.
yeah.
Very sexy scene. Yeah.
So that's the power of music too. It's that sexiness, right? That it
Mm,
kind of seduces you, which is
true.
in the eyes of the church, seen as sinful too. Yeah.
Oh, that's so true.
Yeah. And the dancing is very,
Mm,
sexual as well.
yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Yeah, it's down and dirty. It's yeah, definitely. Yeah. I didn't even think about that, but like yeah, the way music is seen is this sort of yeah, tempting, kind of luring you
lulls you
into
into like
yeah.
a different type of
Yeah.
state.
Yeah. And definitely the music was used to
Yeah.
that effect. Like
Yeah.
even the way they choreographed the movement of their dancing to the
Yeah. It was almost
music.
like
Oh, it was
hypnotizing, which was
totally
amazing.
all hips,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
hips,
Yeah.
lower equator,
Yeah.
hot.
The
Um,
hips,
oof, hips don't
the
lie.
hips aren't lying in that juke joint.
They
All
were
right, that's
certainly
for
not.
sure.
They certainly weren't. My God.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a great call on that character. So the women we know, with the exception of Annie, who we just talked about, was like it was the voodoo situation for her, I guess, that made her a sinner. I suppose that her.
Yeah, I think it was
Yeah.
darker, like charming, the charms and her spirituality, which was seen as sinning. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess we don't have to go through every single one of these people, but I'm curious, what would be the sin for Smoke?
Hmm.
Unless maybe he's the one who's not a sinner. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good question,
You know,
actually. Yeah.
like even we talked about Stack earlier, like his sin. I mean, even did he have a sin or was it just his?
Well, he was tempted. He
Okay.
goes into temptation, right?
Okay.
By
Oh, okay. So there you
yeah,
go. Old school biblical sin.
I would say that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah. Maybe Smoke was maybe the only one who didn't have.
yeah. I don't think he sinned really.
I can't think of what
Yeah,
his vice was, but
because I think he was. Because in the end, he gets the hero's ending, and
yeah.
he's almost with the angels at that point with his with Annie and
Mm-hmm.
his baby. So
Mm-hmm.
I think he's like not seen as the sinner in the end.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. Checks out.
that could be a
Yeah.
that's
Works
my
for
hot
us.
take.
I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, I like
And
it.
then the guy who I forget his character's name, who watches the door,
Oh,
and then he's turned.
cornbread.
Yeah, and he's
Mm.
turned when he uses the when he goes for goes to the washroom.
Hmm.
And what was his sin?
I don't know. I mean, cornbread. See, okay, cornbread. We didn't see much of him, right? So
Didn't
was he
but
cheap? Was it like
there was a conversation with him about
what
scamming
was that?
money or something. I
Yeah.
feel like
Okay. Because I'm like cheap, like being stingy is not really a sin, but scamming money
I
is.
think he had some type of. I think it was mentioned some type of scam with money
Yeah,
in the
you're right.
past. Yeah,
That makes way more sense.
yeah.
So he was obviously crooked.
Yeah, yeah. So that's
Right.
a sin. Yeah, I guess that's a sin too.
Okay. Well,
Yeah,
that's a sin. 1930s Mississippi, and
yeah,
that's definitely a sin.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, I guess one could say that like Smoke and Stack. I mean, the robbing
Oh, they
that
worked
might,
for Al Capone, right?
yeah,
So
the robbing and likely probably a lot of murder as well.
they weren't
Um,
they weren't saints.
they were not saints.
Yeah,
They were not saints. So organized sinners, but they were still sinners.
yeah, I agree. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about the vampires and their sins, but I think I want to pull on a thread that you sort of put out there
okay.
earlier because I know we both said we wouldn't want to be vampires, right? But obviously, there is something that is very alluring about vampires, and
Yeah,
they continue to be a subject in the arts, right? And so, I guess my question, first and foremost, is why? You mentioned a few things before, but like, let's get back into this and really like think about why do we continue to be obsessed with this
oh yeah.
creature of the night?
And after the box office success
Oh,
of Sinners, there's going to be a whole lot more
oh
vampires
my
coming
god,
at you.
so much.
Uh, yeah. So why are vampires
Yeah, why are we fascinated by
so
them?
fascinating? I would say it's. I mean, I love horror movies,
Mm.
and I love a good vampire movie. I have some favorites for sure. I would say vampires they're like the rock stars. They're of monsters.
Mm.
They're rebellious. Typically, they're very they're sexy. They're they're seen as like the outcasts of society, and they're just like they're cool. Vampires are cool
Mm.
and sexy, and they're very they seduce you as well. They're very romantic.
Do
Uh,
you find them romantic?
yeah, I feel like that for the most part in
Yeah.
movies, I feel like they're romantic.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I would say so.
Okay. Okay.
I say they're romanticized. That's what
Okay.
I should say. Yeah, they're very seductive. I would
Yeah.
say. Yeah,
Definitely. Definitely.
typically in how they're portrayed. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And I think that's probably like survival of the fittest sort of thing, like an
yeah,
evolutionary thing that they need to have to
yeah.
survive. Because again, if you were not sexy and you didn't know it, how
Right?
could you live? You literally can't live. Like you have to drain someone of their blood. So you have to get so close to them,
Yeah,
an intimate situation that you need that to survive.
yeah,
Right. So like I feel like that's why we were talking earlier about like this idea of like vampires being just naturally just sort of charismatic. I think that's actually something that would happen
yeah,
if you didn't have it before. You'd have to I mean, when you turn, I think you'd have to learn it. I think that would be I don't know if anyone wants to, if our alchemists want to chime in with like the rules of vampirism, but my understanding is that the person who turns you from like all the movies I've watched, obviously, um, is that they have to sort of guide you. They're like your mentor,
Yeah.
right? So they would probably show you or teach you the ways of seduction. And I think that's part of their toolkit. They have to learn literally how to seduce people so that they can eat,
Yeah.
right?
And prey on you and to convert you. So
Yeah,
you're tempted to
definitely.
become. Yeah. Then
Yeah.
they live forever as well, so they're eternal. So there's that as well, which
Yeah.
is kind
Yeah.
of romantic as well. Live this life
That's true.
forever together.
That's true.
And
Hmm.
they also always look like they just stepped off the runway too. Okay, they're very stylish. All right, vampires are very stylish. Yeah,
Can I? Okay, so I totally agree with you.
yeah,
What's your reference point when you think about vampire, stylish vampire? Like, what's your reference point in your mind right now? Because there's vampires across the ages, I guess, based on when they return. But you probably have something in your head, an image of like what a cool vampire looks like. I mean, we all
yeah.
probably do right
I
now, right?
definitely do like
Mhm.
Kate Beckinsale in Underworld,
Okay. Okay.
and
Okay. Yeah.
uh, even
Yeah.
Edward Cullen in Twilight. And his family.
Okay.
Well, one of my personal favorites, Lost Boys.
Mm-hmm.
So Kiefer Sutherland in Lost Boys, like
Mm-hmm.
his whole vampire crew, they look like they're like some sort of 80s band.
Totally.
All right, some heavy metal
Yeah.
band.
Yeah.
So it's pretty
Huh.
badass. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I think of like for me the epitome of vampire and like sorry, not sorry, I haven't seen any of the Twilight movies, but I'm obviously aware of like who they are.
yeah,
I think of like the more the leather jacket,
yeah,
like more like rock and roll. Like they look hip and modern,
yeah,
hip and modern with a sort of piercing sort of stare and like very yeah, just a kind of like kind of I can't say anything other than rock and roll. Like I picture like more of like that modern sort of vampire.
yeah. It's almost like a model. Like vampires tend
Yeah,
to be angelic too because they do live forever and they have the white skin.
yeah, yeah.
They don't get much sun. Vampires
They do not.
also. So,
They do not.
yeah,
And I think yeah, there's something to do with the idea that you said earlier, like they live forever.
live forever.
That
Yeah,
obviously gives them a sort
forever
of
young.
power
Yeah,
that's also a power's attractive, right?
yeah,
And I think that as humans, maybe one of the reasons why we're so fascinated by them is that we obviously know we're going to die. That's the commonality across the board, and it makes them naturally um, people of interest. Well, not even people,
yeah.
they're not even people, but interesting.
And people are always looking for the fountain of youth, right? And
Exactly.
vampires have it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
They have this thing. So it's like,
yeah,
yes, exactly. So that idea in society that
yeah,
we're always trying to defy aging,
yeah. And
and they've
stay
done it.
looking young. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
And I think it also probably hits on, um, our anxieties around our mortality, like
yeah.
make them really fascinating for us as well, too, and why they're also scary figures, too, right?
Yeah, you're not gonna find
Mm.
those um their skincare regime on Amazon. That's for sure, or Sephora. Okay. Yeah,
Although you never know. I'm sure if we went on Google right now and went to like the dark
yeah. You're not
the
gonna find it
dark
at
web,
Sephora. That's for sure.
there probably
Yeah,
are people that follow some sort of
yeah.
they swear by
I'm
some kind
sure
of
there's
vampiric.
some on the dark web. You're right. I'm sure it's out there.
Probably,
Yeah,
probably. Yeah.
yeah,
And I'm also going to I didn't even think about Twilight or Underworld or any of these, but like there's so many other movies that I had as reference points, but that's so
yeah,
true. There's so many vampire movies that um do have extremely sexy kind of leads, and I was thinking about the idea around like what makes them so sexy,
yeah.
and I think it's the fact as well that there's a desire, like their
It's
bloodlust.
it's lustful. Yeah, that's a good point.
The
Yeah,
bloodlust, right? The bloodlust has to be it,
yeah,
because I think if somebody, I think if somebody is literally looking at you like you're a snack.
Yeah, exactly, right?
It's quite powerful.
Looking at you like a snack. They're lusting for you.
They're lusting for you.
They want
It's
to
that
devour
desire.
you.
Yeah, that's. I mean,
That's
it's
sex.
not the worst thing in the world.
Let's be honest. Yeah,
It is. It is everything that you think about when you think about like sex or think about the
yeah,
exchange or like the the dynamics, right?
yeah,
And I think the idea of seduction that they're attached to that as their way of feeding
yeah.
is just yeah, they're ultimately very much associated with sex.
It's a
And
lustful thing. Yeah,
totally.
yeah.
And the sex positivity. I think vampires seem very sex positive,
Oh, yeah.
right? Which I think makes them appeal to a lot of people.
If you
Men,
ever watch
women.
True Blood,
Oh,
a lot of sex in that.
one of my favorite
A lot of
shows.
sex in that show.
Yes.
That's for sure.
Great show. Great show. True Blood is up there. It's
It's a
definitely
great. It's one of the great vampire films. TV. It's not a film, but TV. Yeah,
great show. And I came to True Blood much later in the game, like well after it was off the air.
yeah.
Love that show.
So I wanted to ask you.
Mm,
We're talking about vampires and vampire movies and
yeah,
and TV shows.
yeah.
Where does Sinners rank with
Ooh.
vampire movies?
In the vault of
Yeah.
all the vampire movies I've
Yeah.
seen, it's definitely going to
Would you put
be
it up there?
up there. Yeah, I'm going to put it up in my top 5.
Oh, wow.
Definitely.
Bold statement.
It definitely, I think it'll stand. But like, if I just for reference, like what's in that vault there for me, like obviously Interview with the Vampires in there
Yes,
without question.
that's a great one.
Great movie. Lost Boys for sure. Um, definitely grew up watching that movie with lots of friends, and I think
Yeah.
that's always going to be one I like. And then I love this movie from New Zealand, What We Do in the Shadows, which is about
Oh, yeah.
the documentary, yep, of 3 vampires. So very different comedic take.
Yeah.
One of my favorite, if it's in my definitely in my top 3, like of vampire movies of all time.
Yeah.
It's just because it's so different, and I love looking at the vampire lifestyle through the eyes of like the very mundane human lifestyle. Like they're just trying to live amongst us.
Yeah.
It's to me the most hilarious thing that a vampire could do,
Like
right?
vampire first world vampire problem.
First world vampire problems and also like human problems and how
Yeah,
silly
yeah.
humans are too. Like
Yeah.
some of the things that we do that to them must seem almost like archaic in their minds too.
Yeah.
Like, why would you do that? Or like, the pleasantries, the performance that maybe a lot of people do from day to day in
Yeah.
our day to day lives. And there would be no need for that as a vampire, really. So it's kind of like, why are you doing this? So I think that movie is amazing. But yeah,
Those are
Sinners
good
definitely.
picks. Those
up
are
there.
good picks. So you're
Yeah.
gonna put in the top 5 with
Oh,
those.
definitely.
Yeah, okay.
I will watch this movie again, and I will enjoy it probably even more. Like that's one of those movies that for
Yeah.
me, each time I watch it,
It
I'll probably
demands
see more.
repeated viewing.
Definitely,
Yeah.
it's going to be one of those classics that people are going to definitely
I agree.
realize the power of, like maybe years from now when
Yeah.
people rewatch it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But where does it sit for you? Where does Sinners rank?
It's definitely up there. And like you said, it's up there because it I don't think I would ever get tired of watching this film. Like every time you watch it, I feel like you get more out of it and you notice different things and it's a masterpiece.
Mm-hmm.
So I put it in my top 5 too, probably in my top 3.
Wow. Okay.
I would mention Lost Boys.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of my favorites. Interview with the Vampires, one of my favorites. Also, Bram Stoker's Dracula with Gary Oldman and Keanu Reeves.
Classic too, yeah.
Let the Right One in. Let the Right Ones in. That's it's an indie vampire film, which was really good.
Oh, okay. Can I? I know we're talking about you,
yeah,
but I have to give a shout out to Nosferatu as well.
Oh
which
yeah,
I just saw. That's why it didn't clock it. But
that's a great film too.
Great film. Yeah. I'm gonna put that.
That's my top 10 for sure.
Definitely. Yeah. You could have a solid top 10. You could have like a vampire weekend, not the band, but actually like a weekend with vampires, and do like honestly 5 or 6 of those films. Yeah, that's a solid. I mean, that's a solid weekend and such diversity.
Also, I have to mention Blade. All right.
Oh, dude. What are we
Blade.
doing? What are we doing?
Blade.
Oh my God.
All right.
I would have
Are you
been
sleeping on
sick
Blade?
to my stomach
Blade.
if we didn't mention
If we
Blade.
didn't mention Blade during this podcast,
That's a problem for me not to have mentioned Blade. Damn,
so
you're right.
that is
Okay. So
yeah.
Blade is in my top
Yeah.
Of course, Blade. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's thank you for that
Amazing.
moment of sanity. I can't believe.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Wesley.
Blade
That's like
is
so
top
wrong.
5 for sure.
Yeah, totally. Of course, into the top 5. Yeah, it's a great movie.
Yeah.
You can't go wrong with vampires. I think that's the thing. I think that's the theme of this podcast. Is
You
that
can't go wrong. Yeah.
we,
Yeah.
hail the vampire lords. Like if I, I think if I if I'm really thinking about, Sinners, in its totality, like we're talking a lot about the vampirism of it all, but the fact that it has so much more than that, like it's really, like you said, the word masterpiece. And I think that's a bold statement, but I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. I don't know any other word for it. And I think the fact that people continue to talk about this movie, dissect this movie, that's still crushing as far as I know in the box office. It's it speaks to the power, of all the things that Coogler put together. So a beautiful, beautiful picture for sure. Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, final thoughts?
Final thoughts. I think we really put a nail in the coffin.
Oh.
Well, I'm very intended with that. I think we really put the nail in the coffin for this episode. Yeah.
All right. I think we're going to leave it on that. I'm not going to say another word after this one. But thanks for joining us. I hope everyone enjoyed this as much as I did. This is a fun conversation. I love chatting about this movie with you.
This is our first video episode, and there'll be many more. And we love to hear about what your favorite vampire film is and where Sinners ranks, and which twin of the smoke and stack do you prefer as well? And any other meaning that we may have missed, we'd love to hear about. Subscribe, leave us a review, and follow us on Instagram at culture_alchemy. We want to keep the conversation going.
Yes, we do. And until next time, alchemists, stay curious.